I've been driving through the dark streets of Houston for over 6 years now. I prefer working night shifts when the city falls silent and the stillness seems to wrap around everything. I used to think I had seen it all, until that one night that still chills my blood. What happened to me wasn't just strange, it was something I still can't fully comprehend. And the worst part, I wasn't the only one who experienced it. If you love horror stories, subscribe and turn on the bell, because what you're about to hear will make you think twice before getting into a car late at night. I've always thought of myself as cautious, never taking unnecessary risks. Sure, I'd picked up odd passengers before, but none like the one I met that night. None. That time, something deep inside told me to stop, to turn away, but I ignored it. And ever since, not a night passes without me remembering his face. It all started like any other shift. It was just after 2 in the morning when a request came through the app. The pickup was near a store I knew well, a 7-Eleven on Lincoln Avenue, always bright, always busy. But something felt off that night. As I got closer, something made me slam on the brakes. All the lights at the store were out and not a single car was parked nearby. It looked abandoned. In that instant, a chill ran down my spine, like something unseen was warning me to turn around. But I didn't. And then I saw him. A man was pacing in circles outside, wearing a dirty, torn hoodie, moving nervously like he was waiting for someone or running from something. Something in me knew that night wouldn't end well, but it was already too late. I slowed to a stop, never taking my eyes off him. I couldn't look away. The way he moved, the emptiness in his eyes, something was wrong. I hesitated. My finger hovered over the cancel button, but for reasons I still can't explain, I unlocked the doors. Without saying a word, the man slid into the back seat. The air in the car grew heavy, as if everything froze. I sat up straight, released the brake, and felt his eyes burning into me through the rearview mirror. He didn't blink. He didn't look away. He just stared. I tried to focus on the road, but I couldn't ignore him. Then I noticed something else. He wasn't wearing shoes. His feet were filthy, covered in mud. Where had he come from? Why was he barefoot at this hour? None of it made sense, and worse was yet to come. The silence was unbearable. Every passing second felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. Trying to break the tension, I turned on the radio, hoping some music would ease the discomfort. I didn't even get to change the station when he yelled, "Turn it off!" His voice was harsh, deep, like someone who'd smoked his whole life. I flinched, letting go of the wheel for a split second, but quickly turned the volume down until the silence returned. A silence that now felt heavier than ever. I gripped the wheel tightly, my hands trembling, too afraid to say anything. He sat there, still, eyes locked on me. Every minute stretched endlessly. I just wanted to reach the destination and get him out of my car, but I didn't know there were still more shadows ahead. Suddenly, his voice broke the silence again, softer this time, almost a whisper. "Have you ever picked up someone you shouldn't have?" The question threw me off. What did he mean? I laughed nervously, hoping it was some sick joke. "I hope not," I replied, trying to stay calm. But he didn't laugh. He didn't say anything. He just leaned back in the seat, muttering something under his breath. Words I couldn't make out. It felt like his mind was somewhere else, somewhere dark, distant. Then he started telling me he used to be a driver too, but quit after some kids robbed him and took things that mattered. He dragged his words, like he was struggling to stay connected to reality. But what froze me was his smile, a smile that didn't fit the story. Something wasn't right, and I knew it. I thought that would be the end, that after his story he'd go quiet, but no. He leaned slightly forward and said, in a calm tone that sent shivers down my spine, "It's strange how much trust you place in someone sitting behind you." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. My hands were sweaty, clinging to the steering wheel like it was my lifeline. My mind was racing. What did he mean? Was that a warning? A threat? I didn't dare respond. I just glanced at the GPS, praying we were close. But there were still minutes to go. Minutes that now felt endless. Then I noticed something else. the bulge under his hoodie. He was gripping it tightly. He was hiding something he didn't want me to see. I didn't know if it was a weapon, a knife, or something worse. I just knew I couldn't count on getting out of this unharmed. I was so focused on keeping control that I didn't notice when he suddenly shouted, "You missed the turn!" I jumped in my seat. I looked at the GPS. No, I hadn't gone the wrong way. The route was right, but I didn't care. I slammed the brakes more out of reflex than obedience. My heart was pounding in my ears. Before I could say anything, I saw headlights behind us. A police car. It felt like a spark of hope. Maybe I could get help. Maybe this would end now. But he immediately curled up, throwing himself onto the back seat like he wanted to vanish. "Don't say a word," he muttered. "Stay quiet, or it'll be worse for you." The patrol car passed slowly, lighting us up for what felt like an eternity, and I remained silent. As soon as the car disappeared around the bend, he sat up slowly, as if nothing had happened. He looked at me one last time through the rearview mirror with an expression I'll never forget and said quietly, "You got lucky." Before I could react, he opened the door and ran into a dark alley. I sat there, frozen. I didn't know if I should follow him, call someone, or just get the hell out of there. I chose the last option. With trembling hands, I ended the trip and shut down the app. I couldn't keep driving that night. All I wanted was to get home, lock the door, and pretend none of it ever happened. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't be able to forget it that easily. Something about that man, his stare, told me this wasn't just a weird encounter. It was something more. Days passed. I still couldn't sleep well. Every time I closed my eyes, I relived that night. But one morning, drinking coffee and scrolling through my phone, everything turned even darker. I saw a news article on a local site. It was about a robbery at a 7-Eleven, the same night I picked him up. Not just any store, the same one. The clerk had been killed and the thief had escaped. A chill ran down my spine. I read it over and over, looking for details. According to the report, the robber had fled on foot, leaving no trace. My mind connected everything instantly. I drove him. He was in my car, inches away. He was running from a crime, and I, without knowing, helped him get away. I felt dirty, like an accomplice, and the worst part, there was still something left to uncover. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Something told me this wasn't over. I checked my car, looking for any sign that it wasn't just a nightmare. That's when I found it. Under the back seat, almost hidden, there was something. I picked it up carefully. It was an old wallet soaked in something dark, dried. I opened it. Inside was an ID, the name of the murdered clerk, his photo, and bloodstains. I felt like the world collapsed around me. Not only had I driven him, but he had left part of his crime with me. That wallet was the proof. I could have been his next victim. If I had said something, looked at him wrong, maybe I wouldn't be here telling this story. Since that day, I think twice before accepting a ride, because some nights, real horror rides with you. My name is Richard, and if life has taught me anything, it's that some silence is way heavier than any scream. 3 years ago, I left everything behind. The city, the people, the sounds that haunted me day and night. What I went through was so intense that even the slightest noise felt like a punch straight to the chest. I thought isolation would save me, but I was wrong. I believed that distancing myself from the world would heal me, that the forest, the solitude and the silence would bring me peace. But what I found was something I still can't fully grasp, something that haunts my dreams, and that, if I could go back, I would never have faced. If you also love horror stories, subscribe and turn on the bell, because what I'm about to share isn't just a memory, it's a warning, and it could happen to you. When I found that cabin in the mountains of Oregon, it felt like fate had placed it in my path. Isolated with no neighbors nearby, surrounded by pine trees and the purest air I had breathed in years. There was no signal, no internet, and that was exactly what I needed. The place was small, but cozy. The wooden walls creaked as if whispering ancient tales. As I stepped inside, I was wrapped in the scent of damp earth and firewood, something that made me feel like I had finally come home. I spent the first few days enjoying absolute silence. I slept soundly, waking to the songs of birds, not horns or shouting. I believed I was healing. But sometimes silence is just the prelude to something unseen, something lurking, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. It was my fourth morning at the cabin when I heard knocking at the door. It struck me as odd because no one knew I was there. When I opened it, I saw an older woman with long grey hair, piercing blue eyes, and an unreadable expression. "I'm Martha. I live down that trail about 15 minutes away," she said, handing me a basket filled with jars of preserves. She didn't give me a chance to refuse, as if the offering was something I had to accept. Before leaving, she stared at me, serious, and said something that froze me. "Always keep your flashlight charged, your windows closed, and your mind sharper than your blade." It wasn't advice. It sounded like a warning, a rule that had to be followed to the letter. I closed the door, confused, and stood listening, but I didn't hear her footsteps fading away. That night, the sky turned darker than I had ever seen it. Thunder rumbled through the mountains, and rain hammered the roof with fury. I curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket with a few candles lit and a book I could barely read in the dim light. Despite the storm's roar, I felt strangely calm. No cars, no yelling, none of the city's chaos. Just the storm, wild, unpredictable, but familiar. But as the hours passed, that peace shifted. There was something in the way the wind howled, something in the creaking walls that made me feel watched, as if the cabin itself was breathing with me. I began to wonder if Martha had known this storm would come, if that's why she warned me. But what happened next, I never could have imagined. In the middle of the storm, a sharp knock at the door made me jump. I ran to the window, expecting to see branches swaying in the wind. But there she was, Martha, soaked, with a flashlight in her hand. I opened the door, bewildered, and without giving me time, she said, "I saw someone near your firewood, be careful." I couldn't understand how she could have made it through that fierce rain. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped onto the porch, lighting up every corner. Nothing. Just swaying trees and shadows playing tricks on my mind. "Are you sure?" I asked. She just nodded, eyes fixed on the woods, as if expecting something to emerge from the darkness. Then, without another word, she turned and walked into the night, as if the storm didn't exist. I stood there, watching her light disappear, and something inside me screamed that this wasn't normal. I couldn't sleep that night. The image of Martha in the rain, her warning, the way she left, it all kept spinning in my head. I sat by the window, watching the storm slowly fade, waiting to see something, or maybe fearing it. And then, there she was. In the distance, right where the forest began, I saw her figure. Martha, still staring at my cabin. Her silhouette was unmistakable, her hair clinging to her face, her flashlight off. I jumped up, grabbed my own flashlight and tried to focus it better, but the raindrops on the glass made it hard. When I finally cleared it and looked again, she was gone. I stumbled back, heart pounding. Why had she returned? What was she looking for? Was she protecting me or watching me? The sense of safety I felt when I arrived vanished completely. Something was terribly wrong. Just as dawn began to break, I heard new knocks at the door. This time they weren't like Martha's. They were heavier, slower, but firm. I approached cautiously, my skin crawling. I peeked through the slit, holding my breath, and it wasn't her. A stocky man, bald with a thick beard, stood at the door as if he knew I was there. His expression was cold, empty, and in his hand he held something metallic. I felt my legs give out. I ran to the bathroom, locking the door, and with trembling hands, dialed the police. As I spoke, I heard him pounding on the door, again and again, harder each time. The dispatcher told me to stay calm, but I knew if that door gave way, I wouldn't live to tell what happened. I was trapped, and I didn't know for how much longer. The minutes until they arrived felt endless. From the bathroom, I heard the door finally burst open with a crash, followed by heavy footsteps in the living room. I didn't dare come out, only praying it would end. Finally, the sirens shattered the silence. The officers stormed in shouting, but when they found me, the man was already gone. They searched the cabin, but it was as if he had never been there. I begged them to help me, to search the forest. They reluctantly agreed, and I asked them to at least check Martha's house. They looked at me, puzzled, but agreed. When we arrived, what I saw left me breathless. The cabin was in ruins, overgrown with weeds. The officers confirmed what seemed impossible. No one had lived there in over 20 years. How could that be? I spoke to her. She was at my cabin. What the hell was happening? Back at my cabin, I felt like a stranger in what I once thought was my refuge. Everything I believed to be real was crumbling. Then, I saw the basket Martha had given me days before. I hadn't touched it, didn't even remember leaving it there. I approached, a mix of fear and curiosity churning inside me. As I opened it, I found something that froze me. A broken flashlight and an old photograph. The picture showed the same cabin, but newer, well-kept, and Martha, young, standing next to the same man who had tried to break in. My heart pounded violently. It couldn't be. Did she know him? Were they in this together? Or was that photo from another time? Another story I had unknowingly stepped into. I felt like the cabin was watching me, as if it knew I now understood everything, or at least part of it. Morning came, and I knew I couldn't stay a minute longer. I gathered my things as best I could and left that cabin, no longer a refuge, but a trap. Yet, as I walked down the trail, I couldn't stop wondering, who was Martha? What was she? Some friends said maybe she was a spirit trying to warn me, to save me. Others believe she and that man were shadows of a dark past, trapped there. Me, I don't know what to believe anymore. I only know that the silence I longed for brought me to the edge of madness. A silence that wasn't peace, but an echo of things that shouldn't be heard. Since then, I've learned that sometimes the quietest places hide the most terrifying screams. And every time I close my eyes, I feel that someone, somewhere in that forest, is still watching me. My name is Michael. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that no matter how well you think you know someone, there's always something you don't see. Every Christmas, Emily and I had the same tradition. After dinner with my family in San Antonio, we'd hit the road toward her home in El Paso, enjoying the quiet of the early morning. That night was supposed to be like all the others. Laughter, music, and miles filled with shared memories. But it was different, very different. What we experienced on that empty highway changed everything. And to this day, I still don't know what scared me more, the man who called, or what I found out about Emily. If you're into terrifying stories, subscribe and turn on the bell, because what you're about to hear tonight could happen to you. Because there are calls you should never answer, and truths you're better off not knowing. It was almost midnight when we left. The highway was empty, covered by a light mist. Emily turned up the music, like she always did, and we sang along as the car moved through the dark roads between the fields. Everything seemed normal, familiar, almost perfect. That's when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I didn't think much of it. I ignored it, letting the ringtone fade out on its own. "Who calls this late?" Emily asked, smiling, not really bothered. "Probably some salesperson who doesn't know when to quit," I replied. We laughed, having no idea what was coming. The phone stayed silent for a few minutes and the road remained the same, but there was something in the air, something I couldn't explain, as if this time, that silence wasn't like before. We kept driving farther from the city, surrounded only by trees and a sky that seemed to close in on us. The music kept playing, but I couldn't relax anymore. The phone rang again. Same unknown number. A chill ran down my spine, like someone was watching us. Emily glanced at me. "Again," she murmured, this time not smiling. I ignored it again, but the silence that followed felt different. It wasn't comforting. It was heavy, like something unseen had joined us in the car. She turned the volume down, as if trying to hear something beyond the music. "Are you okay?" she asked. I nodded, though deep down I already knew something was wrong, nothing was right, and inside I hoped the phone wouldn't ring again, but I knew it would. Barely a couple of minutes passed before it rang again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed it tightly and answered, angry, ready to end what I thought was a bad joke. "Who the hell is this?" I snapped, my heart racing. On the other end, there was only silence and a faint static. I was about to hang up when a deep, calm but chilling voice said my name. "Hello, Michael." A cold wave ran through my body. Emily looked at me, confused. I couldn't speak. The voice continued. It started saying things about me, details that no one, absolutely no one outside my family could know. Where I was born, where I lived, even the name of my first dog. I sat there, frozen, gripping the steering wheel. The highway turned into an endless tunnel. Tap the yellow lamp icon and stay with us so we can uncover disturbing mysteries together. I finally gathered the courage to speak. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaking. I was ready for anything except what I heard next. "I'm not here for you, Michael. I came for Emily." I felt my heart stop. Emily, hearing her name, went pale. "What did he say?" she whispered, but I couldn't answer. The voice kept going, as if enjoying watching us fall apart. "She's sitting right next to you, isn't she?" I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed the brakes, pulling off the road. Emily grabbed my arm, terrified, while I struggled to find words, any explanation. "It can't be. They've got the wrong number," I said, as if that could erase what we had just heard. But she already knew. That call was for her. Now, the silence was absolute. Only our shaky breaths and the man's voice lingered in my ear. Before I could say anything else, Emily leaned in and, with a quick motion, snatched the phone from me and hung up. I froze. "What are you doing?" I shouted, barely recognizing my own voice. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face, but she couldn't speak. "Why did you hang up? That guy knows everything about us. About you." Her silence was louder than any words. I felt trapped, not just by the man on the phone, but by her. What did Emily know that I didn't? I tried calling back once, twice, 3 times, but the line wouldn't connect. Everything that had been trust shattered in that moment. "I'm just scared," Emily whispered. I didn't know what to do, but neither did I. And the worst part, I didn't know if I was more afraid of the stranger who called us or of what Emily was hiding. I decided to keep driving, not really sure where to go. I just wanted to get away from that place, from that moment, from everything. Emily didn't say a word, just stared out the window, hugging herself. That's when I saw them. Headlights in the distance, behind us. A car was on the same road, too close for it to be a coincidence. "Do you see that?" I asked. Emily nodded, her eyes blank. I sped up, but the car followed, keeping the exact same distance, like it knew exactly how much pressure to apply. Every turn, every mile, it felt like the world was closing in on us. The silence between us now was full of fear. It wasn't just a call anymore. It was someone real, someone there, following us. "Don't stop, please," Emily begged, and I had no intention of stopping. But I knew sooner or later I'd have to face whatever was waiting. After what felt like forever, we reached Emily's house. The street was deserted, silent, as if the whole world had frozen. I turned off the engine, but didn't get out. I turned to her, determined. "I need to see your phone." Emily hesitated, swallowing hard. She knew she couldn't refuse. She handed it to me, shaking. I looked through her messages, and there they were. Conversations with a number without a name. Old texts, some short, others barely making sense. "I'll be with you soon. I watched you today. You look beautiful. You can't run from me." My stomach twisted. "Who is this?" I demanded. Emily shook her head, crying. "I don't know." I never replied, but I couldn't think straight anymore. Fear had blended with betrayal and the certainty that this night wasn't over yet. I sat in the car, Emily's phone still in my hand. She sobbed, but I could only hear the echo of that voice. every word it spoke. "How long have you been getting these?" I asked, not looking at her. "For months. I thought it was someone who had the wrong number. I never imagined it would come to this." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think it was all a misunderstanding, a coincidence, but how could someone know so much? How could they follow us? I looked out onto the street. Nothing. No cars, no sign of anyone there, but something told me we weren't alone. I turned my phone back on, hoping for another call. I needed to know who it was, why, but it didn't ring. And that scared me even more. When you don't know where the danger is coming from, everything becomes a threat. It's been almost a month since that night, and every time my phone rings, I feel like it's all starting again. I haven't received any more calls from that number. Neither has Emily, but that doesn't calm me. It scares me more. Sometimes I wake up thinking the car is still behind us, that the headlights turn on just as I turn off the light. And no matter how many times we try to forget, something is etched into us. I don't know if the person who called is waiting for the right moment to come back. I don't know if Emily told me everything. What I do know is that since then, I don't trust anyone. Not the voice on the other end of the line, not the person sitting beside me, because some things have no explanation, and some silences are worse than any threat. It's only a matter of time before it rings again.